welcome to our podcast, Broker Banner Denver, where we break down barriers to home ownership. I'm your host, Kim Davis, the real estate expert.
And I'm Patrick Williams, the mortgage guy. We're here to inform and educate about the home buying and financing process.
And on today's episode, we are going to talk about house hacking. We kind of touched briefly on it last podcast, and we thought we would just do a whole podcast on it and what that means.
What does it mean? I don't know. Stay tuned to find out. It's just a new term. I hear it all the time. So
yeah. But before then, we'll touch base with one another. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Just okay?
Yeah, been trying to get back on the mountain bike since getting back from the cruise and everything, and I had a little bit of an issue last week.
That's right. What happened, Patrick?
Well, I had a little bit of a mechanical, so I got a flat front tire on the way down. And as I went around a corner, I was like, that felt weird. And then I kind of like pressed down on the handlebars to see what was going on with the tire. I think that was a bad move because before I knew it, I was off of the trail and on my back. So as I kind of, I didn't feel like it was too bad of a wreck. I've done that a couple times usually.
So you Supermaned over the handlebars.
Like Superman and tumbled. Like,
and,
because I landed on my back.
Right.
And then as I kind of waited, we were shuttling. So I had a friend who's going to get the truck and he was just going to come back and pick me up because my bike was flat, like I had a flat in the front. I could have tubed it up, but we were pretty close to the bottom.
Okay.
And as I'm waiting, I'm like, what's going on? And by Friday night, I could hardly breathe. So I think I bruised. I don't know that I actually cracked
a rib
or two.
Yeah. How are you doing?
It doesn't hurt unless I move or breathe. That's what I've been telling everybody. Now, you would think having a nurse for a wife would be helpful in these situations.
Yeah. Well, they don't do anything for cracked ribs, right?
Right. And that way, I was pretty confident, like after Friday night, after trying to sleep, I didn't sleep a wink. It was terrible. And so I was like 100% sure that we were headed to the ER Saturday morning. But she's like, why? I'm like, well, I'm in a lot of pain. She's like, yeah, but if they're broken, they're not going to do anything. They can't do anything. So what's the point? Just so you know. So she's full of sympathy for me in this situation. She's like, we're going to clean up and you're going to do the floors. Oh. I'm like, are you sure? Because I feel like I can't hardly move. So I swept.
I'm sorry that I keep laughing. Let's just be honest. Patrick falls off his bike a lot. Over the years, has fallen into a cactus. He has fallen in, where else? I remember the cactus fall because you were picking out quills out of your...
The cactus was the legendary one. That one still goes down and it's still in folklore.
But I used to remember 2 or 3 times you fall over.
I would say, in an average season, I probably crash 2 or 3 times. I think that's pretty common.
Is that normal? Yeah. I don't know. I don't mountain bike. I have a mountain bike. I don't like it.
It's because it's too hard for you. That's why. Mountain biking is hard. You do crash. I was wearing elbow pads and knee pads. I had a helmet on, so I even have a friend who wears back protection.
Okay.
I think it's part of the deal. I don't want to complain too much because it's my own fault.
Right. Yes, it is.
Yeah. But so that's how I'm doing.
So, okay. I
did play a little bit of golf yesterday, though.
Oh, good.
Not a lot. We only played 9 holes, and I wore a lidocaine patch to kind of just numb. And I think it might have helped my golf game a little bit, to be honest.
Oh,
because I couldn't move. I was very stiff. And so my swing was really, I was actually hitting the ball straight for once.
Another thing you might not know about Patrick, according to my husband, not a great golfer. So.
Okay. That is not a false statement. I am a terrible golfer. But what I've learned, here's the issue, okay? I love mountain biking.
Yeah, I know. We talk about it a lot.
In order to mountain bike and have fun at it, you have to do it a lot. You have to mountain bike 3 or 4 times a week.
Right.
Or you're just not going to be in good shape to have fun. And what I've realized is that the only way I can mountain bike and golf is I can't have a job. So there's only so much time. And in order to be good at both of those things, there's no time to work.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah. So I decided that right now I would rather be good at mountain biking. I can always get better at golf
later
in life.
or maybe you just need to have cracked ribs in order to be.
Apparently, it seemed to help because I was hitting it straight yesterday. Well, but yeah, so that's kind of what's going on in Patrick's world. What about you?
So, well, my husband and I did a triathlon a couple weeks ago. I think June 22nd. So today's, I guess,
a couple weeks ago. Yeah, last weekend, I think.
Yeah, and so that went okay. I think we have decided that, we're just doing these for fun now. So it's actually the most relaxing triathlon that we've ever done because we both went in there without any pressure of time, or it was just more like, hey, we just got to get this done today. And we did Loveland Lake to Lake, which is a big triathlon here in well, I guess it's not really Denver metro area.
It's Fort Collins. It's like northern Colorado.
North.
Yeah.
But it's an well, you have a sprint or an Olympic,
So how long? How far is the Olympic?
So I believe this one was just under a mile swim, a 30-mile bike, and then a 10K, so 6.2 mile.
That sounds pretty doable.
It is. Yeah. We gotta be in a little bit of shape to do it.
No, you do.
We kind of went off of our base of doing the half Ironman in October, and so just kind of kept up with that a little bit. So
you've trained though. You've been
trained
a
little bit. I mean, not the way you should. But it's okay. We finished. We both finished. We did it last year. Our time, I think my time was 12 minutes slower.
Overall.
And Jay's time was 5 minutes slower overall. And, in transitions, which are a big part of it, there in the Lake to Lake, you have a really long walk from the swim to the transition area. And like everyone's running and I was just walking and I was like, hi, 'cause I didn't care about my time. It was so great though to be like, low. But hey, I was top 10 in my age group.
How many people were in your age group, Kim?
There were 10.
Perfect. Good job.
Women 45 to 49 who did
the top 10 finish.
Or maybe it was 40 to 49. I can't remember. But
it was funny. We did an open house on Sunday after the race, and Kim's walking up the stairs, and I'm like, "What is on your calf?" And she had like black Sharpie, like a number written on your calf.
Right, so they put your age on your left calf.
I mean, you could tell you had washed, but that Sharpie doesn't come off.
And then I had numbers on my arms that still hadn't completely faded away from the shower. So I know. Thanks for telling me. I was like, oh my gosh, why did you tell me sooner? I would have
I didn't notice sooner. I don't think it's that noticeable. Yeah, honestly.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't think. So
summer's here, and it feels like it's. 4th of July is right around the corner. I think by the time this airs, it'll be
almost the 4th of July, 3rd.
Yeah, it'll be the 3rd. So,
which we probably should figure out what we're going to do next week.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll talk about that later.
4th of July is one of my favorite holidays.
Because
I think I like it more than Christmas.
Up, even though
who doesn't like blowing stuff up? And barbecue and beer and independence.
Yes.
And I mean, come on, it's like the best. It's better than Christmas. No,
it is. No, it's fun.
I love
my brother runs a firework tent, so I usually end up helping him there, which is actually fun for me. So
it is. It's fun. Yeah, she hooks me up too.
Anyways, okay, so house
speaking
hacking.
Of blowing stuff up.
Yeah, blowing stuff up.
All right,
nice segue.
Don't lose any fingers out there, people.
Yeah, be careful. Well, and those are technically illegal in Colorado.
Yeah, you can't get those in Colorado.
Anything that explodes or
but
leaves
where
the
you
ground.
were in Loveland,
yes,
you can drive just north.
To the Wyoming border?
To Wyoming. Yeah. And as soon as you start getting close to the Wyoming border, there are firework billboards and stores everywhere. So you can, if you won't like
not
this stuff.
Not that we're telling you to break laws.
No, of course not. I would never endorse that. But if you do like blowing stuff up, that's how you can do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can go to Kansas too. In Kansas, back in the day when I lived there,
nobody wants to go to Kansas.
The only thing that was illegal were pop bottle rockets.
Oh,
yeah, because wheat fields and they land in wheat fields and catch them on fire.
They do.
Yeah.
So, we used to shoot those at each other. That was fun.
We used to shoot Roman candles at each other.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So, anyways, okay, house hacking. What is house hacking?
What is house hacking?
Well, we talked a little bit about it last week.
Okay.
And house hacking basically is a term that is kind of newer.
It is.
Yeah. And it's basically people who are maybe not family and who want to go together to buy a house. I mean, I would call that roommates, but
roommates, they call it house hacking. But there's also a scenario where I've heard you buy the house and then rent out rooms.
Yeah.
Is that considered house hacking? Where you get roommates to help you pay the mortgage, even though they're not on the mortgage?
Well, I'll tell you what this says, which I am looking at Forbes. It's a site, and it says, what is house hacking? Simply put, house hacking is a strategy that involves renting out portions of your primary residence to generate income that is used to offset the cost of your mortgage and other expenses associated with owning a home. When done correctly, it will allow people to live in an expensive area completely for free or even generate positive income through home ownership. Not too shabby, right?
Not too
That's
shabby.
What it says. So,
well, I think the reason this came up as well is, especially in Denver and some of the more expensive areas of the country, accessory dwelling units have become a very big thing. Some of the older houses maybe that have the detached garages off of the back on the alley, like the old carriage house, or some people or what we used to call a mother-in-law suite.
Yes.
Where you have like a full apartment that's attached to the home, maybe even with a separate entrance.
Right.
And then you can do like short-term rentals on those now with the prevalence of VRBO.
Am I right? House hacking is basically someone buys a house and they rent it out. That's basically what this says. It says
well, I think rent out rooms. I think house hacking is you buy the house as your primary
residence. And then you rent out
you can rent out some rooms. The key, here's the thing from my perspective though. Mm-hmm. If you are planning on house hacking, just know the way that the mortgage lender is going to look at it, which is, we call it border income. Mm-hmm. So if you're renting out a room, that means you're having somebody come in and live in the house, and we call it border income. And it is not an acceptable source of income.
So then, for instance, let's just say I buy a house. I have to qualify that on my own, right?
Correct.
Unless then, which is where I think I alluded to at the beginning, where two people would go in on it, like maybe,
Well, if they're both on the mortgage,
right,
then I would be able to use income from both of them to qualify. So that's a little bit different of a scenario, I think.
So what you're saying is that I would have to qualify for the house on my own, but then I can rent it out to my friends or whoever I want or roommates, but that does not count as rental income. Is that what you're telling me?
That is what I'm telling you.
Huh? Why is that? Why is it not considered? Because
you
are the primary.
And
you
so
own it.
The difference is if you have an accessory dwelling unit, like a apartment above your garage, or like what we had at the open house, that had a completely separate apartment that was attached to the property. That's a different scenario than renting out a room.
Okay.
Right, and basically having a roommate.
So there are a lot of ADUs, as he was saying, that those are like in the older areas. You can still find them in like Highlands. I mean, there are a few in Golden. It seems like those older, and you're starting to see newer homes start to build.
I'll tell you. I was working with Richmond when this started to become really big, and as Sterling Ranch was starting up, that multi-generational living, I think, is kind of what they're calling it now instead of the mother-in-law suite. But that became very prevalent. Everybody, it's like, I think with the amount of people that we have aging and like that boomer generation, right? The baby boomers are coming up and getting ready to retire. A lot of people are trying to figure out how to be able to bring their parents in, help take care of them while maybe maintaining some privacy and some separation, right? And so
are you saying that if it's an ADU or that they can use those as rental?
You can. The hard part is that if you've never been a landlord before and you don't have any history of running rental properties and managing rental properties, it can be hard to use that income to qualify because there's no way, like, so if you're saying you're buying this house and it has an accessory dwelling unit, how do we define the income that could be used from that unit, right? We don't have a history of it. Now, if you buy it, rent it out for 2 years, the short-term rental income is tough. There are more people who are allowing us to use that, maybe some different products that we can be a little more inventive on, a little more creative. But typically, you need at least a 2-year history with a long-term rental to show, I've rented this apartment out for $1,500 a month. I've had X amount of expenses associated with that. Right. And so I average $1,000 a month of rental income for the last 2 years.
It can come in, like you said, I had actually clients, I've had a few clients, but who want to, maybe they qualify, it pushes them to maybe the top of their price point or their price range of what they're comfortable in paying per month. And they say, hey, we bring up, hey, well, you qualify, but you can rent out, that
a room
ADU,
or the basement.
Or you can rent out the basement, or especially if you have a separate, unit, ADU,
Correct.
or Airbnb, or, and like you said, you're starting to see more of that be very, not prevalent, but builders are.
It's much more common. I mean, they're putting them in brand new homes out at Sterling Ranch.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But so you have to qualify on your own, and then after, so it would be good in a refi case, it sounds like, or if someone is feeling pushed to their limit, but they want the house, they could rent.
As long as they still qualify on their own. Right. Yeah, I think that's the caveat that everybody needs to know.
Okay.
Right, is that if I plan on house hacking and offsetting this mortgage payment with some roommates or renting, even a second unit out or something like that, you got to be able to qualify on your own.
Well, so just this Forbes thing says, house hacking has become increasingly popular. Financial independence movement is what they're calling it. It allows people to cut down on their housing and commute expenses significantly. It also allows former renters to start accruing some of the tax incentives associated with home ownership. So basically, I think what they're talking about, though, it sounds like that they would want people to all go in together. Right? Because I was thinking house hacking somewhat, like let's say you have a 5-bedroom house and you have 5 really good friends from college. Couldn't all 5 of you could rent that, and that would be house hacking, right? Versus, but they're all on title. They all have responsibility. Can you do that as a mortgage?
I don't know that we could do 5. That's a lot of buyers.
For one place.
I've done 4. I've done 4 where it's.
Well, what's one more?
I don't know if I have room on the application to do a 5th. I've done 4 though, where it was a husband and wife, and then their parents. And all 4 of them were on the application together and bought the home together. Right. And we can use all 4 of their income to qualify for the mortgage. Right. So that is the benefit. I do think though, in the scenario that you're talking about, where it's 4 or 5 friends,
right.
That seems risky to me. Personally, this is not like a mortgage guy's opinion. This is Patrick Williams' opinion. Like, just thinking back into my mid-20s and the people that I, would call my good friends at that point, buying a house with some of those guys, that just doesn't seem like a smart move.
But also, I mean, you're living in Denver, you're living in New York, Chicago. Some
of the
higher end markets, and it might be a few years. So let me touch base on that. So yes, there are different types of ways that you can take title.
Okay.
And so let's say that we'll say 4, even though I think you can probably do 5.
4 is easy math.
4 roommates or 4 friends decide to go in on a house because they want to live, I don't know, in downtown Denver and buy $1 million.
Wash Park.
Yeah, $1.5 million.
Okay.
Maybe around $1 million to get into Wash Park. And so
pretty much.
Probably more, maybe more like 2. But anyways, so let's just say they decide that they want to live down there and they all go in, they qualify. There are different ways of taking title, right?
Okay.
So there's title, like if you are a single person, you buy it for yourself, that's called taking it in severalty, which is funny, right? Because severalty sounds like it should be multiple people. It
sounds like several people are taking title.
One person who takes title. And, and the reason why you want to know about this is basically what happens if you were to pass. And so
there's some legal ramifications to the way that you take title.
Correct.
Okay.
And so most married people will take title as joint tenants. Now, you can do this as roommates too, or you can do it as, most people do it as married couples. And so what that means is if you take title in joint tenants, it means that, like, for instance, if me, the wife or my husband we'll just use Jay as an example, were to pass away, then you automatically get ownership of the house. It automatically transfers on your death to the other person, if that other person is still alive, right? Before it goes to the estate, it goes automatically to that person.
Okay.
So does that make sense? It's
but that, I mean, in this scenario of house hacking, that doesn't sound like the way you want to do it.
Well,
you don't necessarily want to pass your portion on to one of your roommates.
So then the third way of doing it is called tenants in common.
Okay.
And so what that means is, let's say you have four, like you said, 4 different people. You each own 25% of the house.
Right.
And so then if one of you were to pass, instead of it passing to your roommates or the other people who own, it would go into your estate or would pass on to your next of kin. So if you were had a child,
so
or
that
your
portion,
parents,
25%
yes,
of that home's value,
right,
minus the mortgage,
right,
would be passed on.
Correct. And so as a roommate, I think you would have to discuss, like, hey, since we're all making the payments, do you want, let's say my daughter bought a house and she passed, and now I, who doesn't live in the house, have gotten 25%. So either you're going to have to talk to those roommates and say, hey, you guys are going to have to buy me out.
Right. So my portion of the equity that we built since the time that we bought the house at $500,000, now it's worth $600,000. So my portion of that $100,000 difference is $25,000. See why I did 4? Because it's so much easier math. So I have $25,000 of equity in the home.
Right.
So how do they get that money out? Well, they can try to figure out. They can refinance it. There's lots of different ways to do it.
Equity line of credit.
Yeah.
Credit, which people.
But that's where things get a little complicated.
But it is where things get complicated. Yeah. Now, can you do it? Absolutely. And can you do it smartly and and still want to move forward? I think so. I mean, I think that. Even though Patrick is against it, of course, I think that there's an opportunity because then
I didn't say I was against it. I said I would not be.
Well, maybe he hung out
I would have
with the
some
wrong
concern.
people
But
in
you know
his
what?
20s.
Patrick is the mortgage guy, sees the value in being able to get into the market in a way that you might not be able to otherwise.
I think you look at house hacking as maybe a temporary. It's better than renting. You can build up some equity, and then by the time maybe a few years, 3 to 5 years, you meet someone, you get married,
right? You
have equity. You can sell just your quarter. But I think the smart way is you may have to get a lawyer or something involved to work out some sort of, not for the mortgage or real estate side, but more of, hey, how do we handle when someone leaves?
Because I mean, especially at that time of my life, I know, you're in your mid to 20s, like things change, you get a new job, you're going to move out of state.
Right.
So all of a sudden you've lived in this house 2 years, you've built up some equity. So how do we figure that out?
Well, and you could also say, hey, I own 1 bedroom. I'm going to rent it out. So there are ways to navigate this.
Right. Does it complicate it a little more than maybe, myself and my significant other buying a house? Right. Sure.
Yes.
But it gets you into that market, and you instead of renting a house with your friends, now you guys are building equity.
Exactly. Yeah. They're building equity. And so then when someone wants to move, you all will have a step up. You'll have this money and, building equity, which is...
It's better than renting because how much equity do you build when you rent?
None. 0.
None. You pay the landlord's mortgage for
them. Which
them.
is interesting because didn't you say one time, what's the highest interest rate that you pay when you rent?
Renting is 100% interest.
100% interest.
Yeah.
Because you get nothing.
That was a good one. You remembered it.
I do.
Yeah. Interest rate on renting is 100%. Hey, that's a good segue. So do you want to talk about mortgage rates at all?
Let's talk about mortgage rates.
So we're kind of holding steady. This has been a good 3 weeks.
Okay.
We are currently under the 200 moving day average, so that's great. The 10-year note right now is at 4.28.
Okay.
We are right between 4.35 and 4.20. So 4.20 has been the floor. If we can get below that 4.20, we'll see some price betterments. So rates will come down. We've got the Fed's favorite gauge of inflation coming out tomorrow. Pretty much everyone sees this number as being a pretty even number.
What's the Fed's favorite gauge of inflation?
PCI, I believe.
Okay.
And
CPI.
Yes.
You said PCI. Is it CPI or PCI? CPI.
CPI.
Consumer Product
Index, which is the one that takes out rent and gas.
Yes.
Did I say PCI?
You did. That's okay. A little dyslexic moment.
Maybe it's just a little bit. Okay. So it is the Fed's favorite engaged because of that. Because rents and gas are very volatile and they move all over the place. So that kind of is hard to read. So you throw those two out and you can really see where, inflation's at. We're expecting 2.6%, which we're getting closer to that target of 2%, which is what the Fed wants to see.
In order to lower rates.
In order to start
to think about.
Yes, the Fed has held steady. They haven't raised them for a long time, but we've been stuck at this point that we are right now. So the sooner the Fed starts cutting rates, we'll be able to see the benefits in the mortgage side of things.
So you had said last week that possible 60% chance of, rate decrease in September.
In September, we're still seeing that.
Okay.
So
that's a prediction.
Yeah. So, I mean, some other things
like
that
gambling, right?
Right. There's always things that can change.
Educated guessing. Yeah.
Yes. There's always things that can change. But, gross domestic product came in. We're seeing the economy soften.
Yes.
Like GDP came in at 1.4%, which is down from the initial reading of 1.6. A healthy economy is growing at least 2%.
Okay.
So the economy's slowing down, the job market is slowing down. So we're starting to see the effects of these high interest rates. And that to us, especially if we start to see the labor market break.
Right.
The Fed has indicated if we start seeing the labor market break, we will start cutting rates.
Right.
And so even though they said, hey, one rate cut all year, we hear that, but we're starting to see some differences.
Breaks.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, right? It's a shame that, all these other things have to go wrong in order for interest rates to go down. But of course, we are a real estate podcast.
We are.
So,
and interest rates in our industry, I mean,
they're pretty and let's see, you can see it in the housing market right now. You can see, as we said in the May update, we have
inventories
more homes.
growing.
Yep, more homes on the market right now than we've had in years. And so once again, still great for buyers, but if we see, I think there's still just tons of buyers sitting on the sidelines.
I do too.
And I know you want to wait for that September, but once again, as we always say,
I think there's a lot of people waiting for September. Yeah. So as of right now, we can still get you a pretty good rate. I mean, the last couple that I've quoted out have been under 7%, which is fantastic.
Right.
It's nice to see that.
On, credit and
there's a lot of
things,
factors that come into that. That's right.
Yeah.
So every situation is different.
Good.
But yeah, I'm encouraged. Everybody is pretty certain what we're going to see tomorrow is expected. And that's going to be the lowest inflation reading of the year. Which is a good thing.
Well, and, after tomorrow, we'll have that debate all done and finished with, and we'll see what happens, with the election and what's happening. I'm just saying, it is something that's going on. We don't need to talk politics.
Typically,
we are not a
political podcast. To be honest, I don't even think I can watch this debate. It's just going to be terrible. But, typically in an election year, interest rates come down.
Right. So we'll see. Let's hope that we get that price drop in September. Maybe another one. Will they do another one after the election?
I think if we see one in September, there's a possibility that we see a second one before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be
fantastic. Our industry is greatly affected by interest rates.
It is.
Yes.
It is very much so. Yeah. And so...
Yeah. I don't want to see people lose their jobs or the economy start to soften. No. I don't want to see that.
No.
But I do want to see interest rates come down.
Yes.
So I guess if those things have to happen for interest rates to come down.
Then, not that we're all excited about.
No, yeah. And like I said, bad news is good news, right? Like bad news is good news, and we're seeing more and more bad news, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately and fortunately for anyone that's looking to buy a house, contact Patrick Williams for any mortgage advice and me if you have any real estate advice. But I think that pretty much wraps it up.
I think we can wrap it up. Yeah. So if you found any part of this podcast valuable, please give us a like, share us. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes.
Yep. See you guys next week.